The text came in at 6:47 p.m. while I was finishing dinner. Emergency work meeting downtown. Staying overnight at hotel. Sorry, honey. We'll call later. I stared at the screen for exactly 10 seconds. Then I started laughing. 3 weeks ago, my wife started acting different. New perfume. Longer showers. Phone face down during dinner. Classic signs, but I needed evidence. The breakthrough came when I surprised her with lunch at work. I walked into her building and asked the security guard about Andrews and Associates. Andrews and Associates? He looked confused. Sir, that company moved out 6 months ago. She'd been leaving for work every morning for 6 months, going somewhere that didn't exist. I checked our bank statements that evening. No direct deposits since March, but there were charges I didn't recognize. Gas stations across town, restaurants I'd never been to, monthly payments to Williamson Executive Suites. Friday morning, I followed her. She drove straight to an upscale hotel downtown and walked in like she owned the place. 20 minutes later, David Kim walked in, her ex-boyfriend from college, who she claimed she hadn't spoken to in years. I waited 2 hours. When they came out together, there was no mistaking what I'd witnessed. So tonight, when she texts about an emergency meeting, my response was surgical. Give my regards to your ex-boyfriend David from marketing. Room 418, right? I hit send and went back to my dinner. Took exactly 3 bites before my phone exploded. Call after call, text after text. I let it ring. By 7:15, I heard tires screeching in the driveway. The front door slammed open and there she was. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair a complete mess, car keys shaking in her hand. Her phone was in her other hand, thumb frantically deleting messages. How did you? She started, then stopped. Started again. It's not what you think. I took another bite of my sandwich. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. So tell me what it is then. There actually was a meeting. David just happened to be there because you've been unemployed for 6 months and he's been paying for your hotel meetings. She froze like a deer in headlights. Andrews and Associates moved out in March. The security guard was very helpful when I asked. Funny thing about lies, they're easy to check when you know where to look. The color drained completely from her face. You've been following me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. She sank into the chair across from me, phone still buzzing with messages. Probably David wondering where his afternoon entertainment went. We need to talk, she said, trying to sound authoritative. We are talking. You're just not saying anything worth hearing yet. This is my marriage too. You can't just what? Notice when my wife stops going to work. Ask questions when mysterious charges show up on our credit card. Expect honesty from the person who promised to be faithful. Her mouth opened and closed without making a sound. Finally, she managed. It's complicated. No, it's not. You lost your job, lied about it for months, and started meeting your ex-boyfriend at hotels instead of finding new work. You only stopped because you got caught. What's complicated about that? I stood up, cleared my plate, and walked to the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Mr. Andrews mowing his lawn. Normal people doing honest work. When I turned back, she was deleting messages like her life depended on it. You might want to save some of those, I said calmly. Save them for what? I smiled. Not the kind of smile she was used to seeing. For when you explain to everyone how you've been spending your days. Her phone kept buzzing. David again. I could see his name lighting up the screen every few seconds. She'd glance at it, then at me, then back at the phone like it was a live grenade. Answer it, I said. What? Answer David's call. I'm curious what he has to say. She clutched the phone tighter. I'm not going to. You're not going to what? Talk to your boyfriend? The man you've been meeting every week while pretending to go to work. He's not my boyfriend. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Right. You just meet him at hotels for business meetings. What kind of business exactly? The kind that requires you to lie to your husband for 6 months. She opened her mouth to respond, but the phone rang again. David's persistence was almost admirable. Almost. Here's what's going to happen, I said, walking over to where she sat. You're going to answer that call and put it on speaker, or I'm going to call him myself and ask why he's been funding my wife's unemployment vacation. Her hands were shaking now, genuine fear in her eyes. Good. She should be afraid. She answered on the 4th ring. David, I can't talk right now. Where did you go? You just disappeared. I've been calling for 20 minutes. Is everything okay? I gestured for her to put it on speaker. She hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before complying. David, she said, voice cracking. My husband, he knows. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, knows what? I leaned forward toward the phone. He knows about Williamson Executive Suites. He knows about the weekly meetings. He knows you've been paying for them. Should I keep going, David? Who is this? This is the husband. The one who pays the mortgage while you pay for hotel rooms. Another long silence. Then David's voice, trying to sound tough. Look, man, this isn't what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been meeting my wife at hotels while she pretends to go to work. She lost her job 6 months ago, and instead of finding new employment, she decided to start a little side business with you. We weren't. It's not like that. Then what is it like, David? Enlighten me. I could hear him breathing heavily through the phone. My wife was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. She'd never seen this version of me before. The version that doesn't ask nicely. The version that takes control. We're just friends, David finally managed. Friends who meet in hotel rooms. Friends who lie to their spouses. Friends who sneak around like teenagers. Is that what you call friendship where you come from? I should go, he said quickly. No, stay on the line. I want to make sure we understand each other. My wife won't be meeting you anymore. Not at hotels, not anywhere else. And those monthly payments you've been making? They stop now. You can't tell me what to do. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. I'm not telling you what to do, David. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Big difference. And if I don't agree, then everyone finds out. Your employer, your family, your neighbors. I'll make sure they all know exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who pursues married women and pays for hotel rooms while their husbands work to support them. The line went quiet except for his breathing. Your choice, David. Walk away clean, or have this follow you everywhere you go. Click. He hung up. I looked at my wife. She was staring at her phone like it had just burst into flames. Well, I said, sitting back down. That was educational. You had no right to. I had every right. You gave me that right when you decided to lie about having a job. When you decided to meet other men while I paid our bills. When you decided to make a fool of me. She was crying now. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen before when she wanted something. These were different. These were the tears of someone who just realized their safety net had been cut. What happens now, she whispered. I finished the last bite of my sandwich and stood up. Now you start telling me the truth. All of it. Starting with how long this has been going on and what exactly you've been doing with my money while pretending to earn your own. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving black streaks across her cheek. The mascara made her look like a raccoon caught in headlights. It started after I got laid off, she began, voice barely above a whisper. I was embarrassed. You were working so hard, picking up extra shifts, and I couldn't even keep my job. I stayed silent. Let her talk. I ran into David at the coffee shop on 5th Street. We started talking, and he offered to help me network, find new opportunities. She paused, waiting for me to respond. When I didn't, she continued. The hotel meetings were supposed to be about job interviews. He said he had connections. Job interviews that required you to freshen up your makeup beforehand. Her face flushed red. It wasn't like that at first, but it became like that. Yes. The word came out like a confession at church. When, about 2 months ago, maybe 3, I don't remember exactly, I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a notepad. Started writing. She watched me nervously. What are you doing? Taking notes. Continue. Taking notes for what? I looked up at her. For the divorce attorney. Keep talking. Her face went white. Divorce? We don't need to. We can work this out. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I don't want counseling. I want the truth. How much money has David given you? It's not like that. How much? She stared at her hands. He paid for the hotel rooms. Sometimes he'd give me money for gas, food, small things. How much total? I don't know. Maybe $1,000? Maybe more. I wrote that down. What did you tell him about our marriage? Nothing bad. I just said we were having problems, growing apart. We weren't having problems until you started lying. I know. You're right. I messed up. I set the pen down and looked at her directly. You didn't mess up. You made choices. Daily choices. For months. You chose to lie about your job. You chose to meet another man. You chose to take his money. You chose to come home and kiss me goodnight while smelling like his cologne. She flinched at each word. And tonight, you chose to lie again. Even after everything, your first instinct was to lie. I was scared. Of what? Of me finding out the truth? Or of losing your backup plan? My backup plan? David, Your insurance policy. Keep the husband for stability. Keep the boyfriend for excitement. Hedge your bets. She was crying again, but I was past caring about her tears. That's not what this was. Then what was it? Explain it to me like I'm stupid, because apparently I've been acting pretty stupid for the last 6 months. She took a shaky breath. I felt worthless after losing my job. David made me feel important again, like I mattered. And I didn't. You did, but differently. You made me feel safe, secure. David made me feel desired. There it was. The honest truth finally. So you decided you deserved both. I never meant for it to go this far. I picked up the pen again. Did you sleep with him? She closed her eyes. Yes. How many times? Does it matter? It matters for the paperwork. Several times. Maybe a dozen. I wrote that down too. Did you use protection? What? Did you use protection when you had sex with David? Her face turned crimson. Yes. Always. Good. I'll need to get tested anyway, but that's helpful information. She looked horrified. You're really going to divorce me over this? I set the pen down and looked at her like she'd asked me if water was wet. You've been unemployed for 6 months and lied about it. You've been meeting your ex-boyfriend at hotels and lying about that too. You've taken money from him while I paid all our bills. You've had sex with him multiple times. And tonight, when caught, your first instinct was to lie some more. What part of that sounds like something worth saving? But we can fix this. We can rebuild trust. Trust? I almost laughed. You want to rebuild something you never had. You've been lying since March. It's November. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle choice. She stood up abruptly. So that's it. 8 years of marriage and you're just throwing it away. I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you chose David over honesty. I chose you. I'm here, aren't I? You're here because you got caught. If I hadn't sent that text, you'd be in room 418 right now, wouldn't you? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Pack a bag, I said. What? Pack a bag. You're staying somewhere else tonight. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. Check the lease. Only my name is on it. Has been since we moved in. Her mouth fell open. Turns out being the only one with verifiable employment has its advantages. She stood there for a full minute, processing what I'd just said. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to find an angle, a way to regain control. You can't just kick me out. I have rights. You have the right to find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Call David. I'm sure he'll be happy to help. I'm not calling David. Then call your sister. Call a friend. Call a hotel. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. I heard her sister's voice answer. Cindy? It's me. I need a favor. Her voice cracked. Can I stay at your place tonight? Something happened with my husband. I could hear Cindy asking questions, but she kept the answers vague. We had a fight. I'll explain later. After she hung up, she looked at me with what I assume was supposed to be a pitiful expression. Cindy wants to know if this is permanent. Tell her to ask you in a week. A week? That's how long you have to figure out your next move. Find a job, find a place to live, find a lawyer. Whatever you need to do. You're not being fair. I actually laughed at that. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would be me finding out 6 months ago when you lost your job. Fair would be you telling me the truth when I asked how your day at work went. Fair would be you not taking money from other men while I paid for your car insurance. I never asked David for money, but you took it when he offered. She had no answer for that. Pack your bag. Cindy's waiting. 20 minutes later, she came back downstairs with a suitcase and her makeup bag. She paused at the door, probably hoping I'd change my mind. Tell her we could work it out. I love you, she said quietly. No, you don't. You love what I represent. Stability. Security. Someone who pays the bills while you play house with other men. That's not true. If you loved me, you would have told me about losing your job. You would have asked for help instead of lying. You would have found another job instead of finding another man. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For once, she had nothing to say. After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat down at my computer. Time to get practical. First, I changed all the passwords. Bank accounts, credit cards, streaming services, everything. Then I called the bank and had her removed as an authorized user on my accounts. Turns out that's surprisingly easy when you're the primary account holder. Next, I sent an email to my attorney. Brief and to the point. Need to discuss divorce proceedings. Wife has been unemployed for 6 months while lying about having a job. Also having an affair. Can you meet tomorrow? He replied within an hour. Available at 10 a.m. Bring documentation. I spent the next hour gathering documents. Bank statements, Credit card bills, the lease agreement, tax returns. Everything that showed I'd been carrying the financial load while she pretended to contribute. Around midnight, my phone started ringing. Her number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. I turned it off. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. I scrolled through them over coffee. Please call me back. We need to talk. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Don't throw away 8 years over one bad decision. I'll do anything to make this right. The last one was different. I told Cindy everything. She thinks you're being unreasonable. I deleted them all and got dressed for work. At the office, I kept my phone on silent, but I could see it lighting up periodically. More calls, more texts. Around lunchtime, my coworker Gary knocked on my cubicle wall. Hey, your wife called the main line. Says you're not answering your cell. What did she want? Wanted me to give you a message. Said to tell you she's sorry and she'll do whatever it takes. What did you tell her? Told her I'd pass along the message. Gary paused. Everything okay at home? Everything's fine. She's just being dramatic about something. Gary nodded and walked away. I made a mental note to tell HR that my wife was no longer authorized to contact me at work. My attorney's office was downtown, same building where she used to pretend to work. The irony wasn't lost on me. This is pretty straightforward, he said after reviewing my documents. No kids, no joint assets except a few thousand in checking. The lease is in your name. Car titles are separate. Should be clean. How long will it take? If she doesn't contest it? 6 to 8 weeks. If she fights it, could be 6 months. She'll fight it. Most people do initially, but when they realize it's over, they usually come around. And the affair? Adultery doesn't matter much financially in this state, but it does expedite the process. You have proof. I showed him screenshots of David's number calling her phone repeatedly last night. Bank records showing the hotel payments. Her confession, which I'd recorded on my phone. Wait, you recorded her confession? Single-party consent state. Legal to record conversations I'm part of. He smiled. You've done your homework. When I got home that evening, there was a note taped to my door. I'm staying at Cindy's. Please call me. We need to talk about this like adults. I know I messed up, but throwing away our marriage isn't the answer. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. Then I ordered pizza and settled in to watch the game. For the first time in months, I didn't have to wonder where my wife was or who she was with. It felt pretty good. 3 days into my new peaceful routine, David decided to grow a backbone. I was leaving work Wednesday evening when I spotted him leaning against my car in the parking lot. He'd clearly been waiting, probably trying to work up the courage to approach me. When he saw me coming, he straightened up and tried to look intimidating. David Kim was about 5'8" on a good day, maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. I'm 6'2" and spent 4 years in construction before getting my current job. The physical mismatch was almost comical. We need to talk, he said, trying to sound tough. No, we don't. I walked around him and unlocked my car. You can't just ruin people's lives because you're upset. I turned around slowly. Ruin people's lives? That's rich, coming from you. Look, what happened between your wife and me? What happened is you pursued a married woman and she was stupid enough to fall for it. Now you're both dealing with the consequences. She came to me for help. She was struggling emotionally and financially. So you helped her right into a hotel bed. What a gentleman. His face flushed red. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, David? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you saw an opportunity to take advantage of someone in a vulnerable position. I care about her. If you cared about her, you would have encouraged her to tell her husband about losing her job instead of helping her lie for 6 months. He stepped closer, which was a mistake. You don't deserve her. I smiled. Not a nice smile. You're probably right. I don't deserve a lying, cheating wife who takes money from other men. That's why I'm getting rid of her. She loves you. She loves my paycheck. There's a difference. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was not checking her story sooner. But that's been corrected. David clenched his fists, probably debating whether to take a swing at me. I almost hoped he would. It had been a long week, and I could use the stress relief. She's not going to just disappear from your life, he said finally. Actually, she is. Divorce papers get filed tomorrow. After that, the only time I'll hear from her is through lawyers. What if she doesn't sign them? Then she'll explain to a judge why she thinks adultery and fraud are acceptable marriage behaviors. Should be an interesting conversation. I could see him processing this, realizing that threatening me wasn't going to work. I could make things difficult for you, he tried. How? I know where you work. I know your routine. I laughed out loud. Are you threatening me, David? Because if you are, I should mention that this parking lot has security cameras, and the police take workplace harassment pretty seriously. He glanced up at the cameras, then back at me. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. Just think about what you're doing, he said, backing away. 8 years of marriage. 8 years she threw away for hotel room quickies with you. Don't put that on me. He walked away without another word. I watched him get into a beat-up sedan and drive off. Then I called my attorney and told him about the encounter. File a police report, he advised. Create a paper trail in case he escalates. The next morning, her sister called my work line. Cindy, the voice of reason who apparently thought I was being unreasonable. She's devastated, Cindy said without preamble. She barely eats. She cries all the time. She should have thought about that before she started lying. Everyone makes mistakes. Mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. What she did was make a series of calculated decisions over 6 months. That's not a mistake, that's a lifestyle choice. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. She wants to go to counseling. I don't. You won't even try to save your marriage. There's nothing to save. She killed it when she chose to lie about her job and sleep with David. One affair doesn't have to end everything. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Cindy, would you stay married to someone who lied to you every single day for 6 months? Someone who took money from other men while you paid all the bills? Someone who only told you the truth when they got caught red-handed? Silence on the other end. That's what I thought. She's family, Cindy said quietly. Not anymore. The divorce papers were filed an hour ago. After I hung up, I blocked Cindy's number 2. That weekend, I got a surprise visit from her parents. They showed up Saturday morning while I was having coffee and reading the news on my tablet. Her father, Camden, was a man I'd always respected. Former military, straight shooter, didn't tolerate nonsense. Her mother, Nora, had always been kind to me, but was clearly here to advocate for her daughter. We heard about the separation, Camden said when I let them in. It's not a separation. It's a divorce. Maybe we could sit down and talk about this, Nora suggested. As adults. I gestured to the living room. Coffee, please, Camden said. I brought out 3 cups and sat across from them. Nora looked around the house like she was taking inventory. She's not taking this well, Nora said. I imagine not. You were always good for her, Camden added. Kept her grounded. Apparently not grounded enough. People make mistakes. Mr. Randall, I interrupted. Your daughter lost her job 6 months ago, and instead of telling me, she lied about it every single day. She met with her ex-boyfriend at hotels while I worked overtime to pay our bills. She only told me the truth when I caught her in the lie. That's not a mistake. That's fraud. Camden's expression darkened. Fraud. She took money from David while pretending to contribute to our household expenses. She used our joint credit card to pay for gas and food for her hotel meetings. She committed adultery and lied about it repeatedly. Nora looked stricken. She told us you two were having marriage problems. We weren't having problems until she started lying. The problems were her unemployment and her affair, both of which she hid from me. Camden was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, how long was the affair? 3 months of physical involvement, 6 months of emotional involvement and financial support from David. And you found out how. I explained about discovering Andrews and Associates had moved out, the bank statements, following her to the hotel. When I finished, Camden looked at his wife, then back at me. Son, he said slowly, I owe you an apology. She didn't tell us the whole story. Nora was crying softly. I can't believe she would do something like this. Neither could I. That's why it took me 6 months to figure it out. Camden stood up and extended his hand. You're doing the right thing. A man shouldn't have to tolerate that kind of disrespect. After they left, I felt something I hadn't expected, validation. Even her own parents understood that some lines can't be uncrossed. Sunday evening, I got one last call from her. My parents told me what you said. I told them the truth. They think I should sign the divorce papers. Smart people, your parents. Is this really what you want? What I wanted was a wife who didn't lie to me every day for 6 months. Since that's apparently not available, I'll settle for a clean divorce. I could change. You had 6 months to change. You chose not to. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of telling the truth? Of getting a job? Of disappointing you? Well, mission accomplished on that front. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, the papers will be signed tomorrow. Good. Your attorney has my attorney's information. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Forgiveness is for people who deserve it. You threw away 8 years of marriage for hotel room sex with your ex-boyfriend. That's not something you forgive. That's something you learn from. Learn what? That actions have consequences. That lies always come out. That some mistakes can't be fixed. She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks later, the divorce was final. No contest, no drama, no last-minute attempts at reconciliation. She'd finally accepted what I'd known from the moment I sent that text. It was over. I kept the house. She kept her car and what little savings she had. David had apparently stopped taking her calls once he realized I wasn't going to back down. 3 months later, I heard through Gary that she'd found a job at a retail store and was living in a studio apartment across town. David had moved to another city entirely. I wished them both the best of luck. They were going to need it. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was living a completely different life. Better life. I'd gotten a promotion at work, partly because I was no longer distracted by wondering what my wife was really doing all day. Turns out when you're not covering for someone else's lies, you can focus on your own goals. The house felt bigger without her stuff cluttering it up. I'd repainted the bedroom, bought new furniture, made it mine. No more walking on eggshells, no more checking bank statements for mysterious charges, no more wondering why she was always on her phone. I was having dinner at Olive Garden with Gary and his wife when I saw her. She was working there, wearing the standard uniform, carrying plates, looking tired. She spotted me before I could look away, and I saw the exact moment she realized who was sitting in her section. She walked over slowly, order pad in hand. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi." Gary and his wife looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm Ruby. I'll be your server tonight." She was using her fake customer service voice. "Can I start you with drinks?" I ordered a beer. Gary and his wife ordered iced teas. She wrote it down without making eye contact and walked away. "Is that your ex-wife?" Gary's wife whispered. "Yes." This is awkward. Only for her. When she brought our drinks, her hands were shaking slightly. The confident woman who used to lecture me about spending money was gone. This was someone who'd learned what actual consequences looked like. "Ready to order?" she asked. We gave her our orders. She wrote everything down carefully, like she was afraid of making a mistake. "How long have you been working here?" I asked when she finished writing. She looked up, surprised. 3 months. "You like it?" "It's honest work," she said, and I could hear the emphasis on the word honest. "That's good. Honesty is important." She nodded and walked away to put in our order. Gary leaned forward. "That was cold, man." "Was it?" I asked how she liked her job. "That's just conversation. You know what you were doing." Maybe I did. But after 6 months of wondering how she was doing, of occasionally feeling guilty about ending the marriage, it was satisfying to see that she was working. Actually working. Supporting herself instead of lying about it. When she brought our food, she avoided eye contact completely. But as she set down my plate, she whispered, "Can we talk? After my shift?" "No. Please. Just for a minute. We don't have anything to talk about. I want to apologize." "You already apologized. Multiple times. I heard you. I mean really apologize. Not the fake apologies I gave before." I looked at her for a long moment. She looked older, tired. The easy confidence she'd had when someone else was paying her bills was gone. "Okay." One conversation. Her shift ended at 9. I waited in the parking lot, sitting in my car, reading emails on my phone. She came out the employee entrance and walked over slowly. "Thank you for waiting," she said when I rolled down the window. 5 minutes. I was wrong. About everything. I should have told you about losing my job. I should have asked for help instead of lying. I should have ended things with David before they started. I listened without comment. I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I understand that. But I want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. "It wasn't a mistake," I said. "Mistakes are accidents. What you did was make choices. Every day for 6 months, you chose to lie. I know. You chose David over honesty. You chose his money over finding a job. You chose hotel rooms over your marriage." She was crying now. "I know. So don't call it a mistake. Call it what it was. You traded everything we had for something that didn't last 3 months. He left town," she said quietly. "I heard. When things got difficult, when you filed the divorce papers, he disappeared. Just like you said he would. Men like David don't stick around when things get complicated. They want the fun without the responsibility. I learned that the hard way. You learned a lot of things the hard way." She wiped her eyes. "Are you happy?" I thought about that question. Was I happy? I was successful, peaceful, honest. I didn't have to worry about lies or betrayal or wondering where my money was going. Yes, I said. I am. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. So do you. But happiness has to be built on truth, not lies. I'm trying to do better. Good for you. She stepped back from the car. I should let you go. Take care of yourself, I said, and I meant it. As I drove away, I realized something had shifted. The anger I'd been carrying was gone. Not because I'd forgiven her, but because I no longer cared enough to be angry. She was just someone I used to know, someone who'd made bad choices and was living with the consequences. A year later, I heard she'd moved to another state, started fresh somewhere else. I hoped she'd learned from our marriage, that she'd be honest with the next person who trusted her. As for me, I was seeing someone new. A woman named Zoe who worked in accounting at my company. She was direct, honest, financially independent. She paid her own bills, told the truth about her day, and didn't have any ex-boyfriends lurking in hotel rooms. On our third date, she asked about my divorce. What happened? She said over dinner. My ex-wife decided that lying was easier than telling the truth. I decided that marriage without trust wasn't worth having. That must have been hard. The hardest part was realizing I'd been living with a stranger for 6 months. Someone who looked like my wife, sounded like my wife, but wasn't the person I thought I'd married. Do you ever miss her? I thought about that. Did I miss her? I missed the person I thought she was. I missed feeling secure in my relationship. I missed not having to wonder if I was being lied to. But did I miss her? The woman who'd looked me in the eye every morning for 6 months and lied about where she was going? The woman who'd taken money from another man while I paid her car insurance? No, I said, I don't miss her. And that was the truth. 3 years later, I married Zoe in a simple ceremony with just family and close friends. She never lied to me about her job, never disappeared for mysterious meetings, never made me wonder if I could trust her. Sometimes people ask if I'm glad my first marriage ended. That's the wrong question. I'm glad I found out who she really was before wasting more years on someone who didn't value honesty, commitment, or respect. The right person doesn't make you question your worth, doubt your judgment, or wonder if you're being played for a fool. The right person tells you the truth, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it well. And in the end, that education was worth every painful moment of discovering who my first wife really was underneath the lies. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is finding out the truth about someone before it's too late to do something about it. In my case, it wasn't too late. I had a choice: accept being lied to or demand better. I chose better, and I've never regretted it.